Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. NBC News once again rises up to help President Obama. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points Memo. As everybody knows, NBC News, owned by the General Electric Company, has been extremely favorable to Barack Obama ever since he launched his presidential campaign. Now the president's in trouble. All the polls show Americans turning against his health care vision. In fact, in Pennsylvania, a new Rasmussen poll says Senator Arlen Specter, a supporter of Obamacare, is now losing to his Republican challenger by 12 points. Just a few weeks ago, Specter was up by 11. That is a stunning turnaround. So there's no question the healthcare chaos is hurting the Democratic Party and President Obama. To the rescue, NBC News, which is now using its power to attack the healthcare protesters.
I think some of the people are upset because we have a black president.
It's an uprising. Angry old white folks are storming into town halls all across America spewing lies about healthcare reform. Let me set the record straight early on. These folks, I think, they're dumber than Joe the plumber.
Robert Gibbs may be right. We're all focusing on sort of the craziness that's taking place at these town halls and some of these politicians that are playing to the bases that are showing up to town halls when you're not getting a representative sample of actual people in the middle who show up.
Now, there's something very disturbing about a major corporation, GE, allowing its news division to brand regular Americans racist, fascist, stupid, because they oppose a public policy. In fact, I've never seen this before in my 35 years of journalism. I mean, think about it. Folks are using their constitutional rights to protest a health care policy they believe will harm them and the country. A powerful corporation, GE, which just received more than $1 billion in low-cost government loans, that's taxpayer money, demonizes the very people that provided them the cash. Is that unbelievable? And the folks are noticing. So far in August, the MSNBC network, the most radical left arm of NBC News, is down 24% in total audience, while Fox News is up 21%. At 8 p.m., the factor is up 56% in the key 25 to 54 demo, MSNBC down 15%. And it's not just NBC News going after the healthcare protesters. CBS News reported this last night.
Those fighting the health care bill contend the outrage is not organized.
It's 1 million or so independent individual voices exercising their right to free speech.
Yet websites such as Recess Rally, which is planning a nationwide health care bill protest, list FreedomWorks as part of its coalition. That's an organization headed by former Republican Congressman Dick Armey, whose lobbying firm works for the health care industry. Yet the other side is organizing too. Attendees at this pro-reform event yesterday in Los Angeles were recruited by a local social service agency.
It seems like the Republicans have all these talking points that have been delivered through Glenn Beck, Bill O'Reilly, and Sean Hannity.
Totally absurd. I've never received a Republican talking point in my life. CBS should be ashamed to use a dishonest soundbite like that. So the battle lines have been drawn as the nation is deeply involved in the most intense political debate in years. President Obama has the power of his office and most of the media squarely behind him. The folks have the folks. We'll see who prevails. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, the latest poll numbers. According to a just-released Fox News Opinion Dynamics poll, 49% of Americans now oppose Obamacare, just 34% favor it. And when asked if they are satisfied with the way things are going in America, 61% of Americans said they are not satisfied. Just 38% say they are. And in a Rasmussen poll, the president's job approval rating has hit its lowest level ever. Joining us now from Los Angeles, Dr. Caroline Heldman, who teaches political science at Occidental University, and from Asbury Park, New Jersey, pollster Scott Rasmussen. Well, it's a pretty stunning last 4 weeks, is it not, Scott? Can you put it in some kind of perspective for us?
Well, the president's numbers have been slipping steadily. He was at 53%, the same share of the vote he got last November until about a month or so ago. And his numbers have been sliding then. The significant number is not the overall job approval. It's the fact that independents are beginning to break away from the president. Now, everybody says it's because of health care or this current debate we're seeing. But really what's happening is a lot of frustration has been accumulated that's playing out in the health care debate. Voters were overwhelmingly opposed to bailouts when they began in the Bush years. They're opposed to them when they continued in the Obama year. They also were overwhelmingly opposed to the GM and Chrysler takeovers, most opposed to the Cash for Clunkers program. And there was just this frustration that people were feeling, and it's coming out in play in the town halls we're seeing in the form of debating health care, but it's really a bigger issue than that.
Okay, but what about in Pennsylvania, a state that went comfortably for Barack Obama? Right. Arlen Specter, okay, just 2 weeks ago, up by 11, now down by 12. I mean,
2 months ago. There was a 2-month gap.
Was it 2 months ago?
Still, it's a stunning turnaround. Our inspector, of course, you know, hated by Republicans in the state. They feel he betrayed them when they voted, when inspector supported the stimulus package and then switched parties. And now this health care debate is really focusing more heat. 36% is all the support Specter can get for a 5-term incumbent. That's terrible. And it's very closely correlated with the health care numbers. People who like the health care plan in Pennsylvania like Specter, and the majority don't like it in Pennsylvania.
And Pennsylvania is a bellwether state. Now, Doctor, how do you, as a political scientist, how do you analyze all of these numbers rolling in and the problems President Obama is obviously having?
Well, I would very much agree with Scott that we are seeing really a lot of partisan dissatisfaction, although some of it amongst independents, and that the health care, what's happening at the health care debates is very much a reflection of broader concerns, not just health care. And what I think is rather unfortunate is that health care, you know, is a broken system, and it does require reform. It's costing us billions of dollars every year because we have 48 million uninsured Americans who go to the ER for health care, which costs us a lot of money.
I don't think there's anybody, there are very few people, Doctor, who say that the health care system doesn't need reform. The problem is the reform runs more than 1,000 pages in the House and more than 600 pages in the Senate. Nobody can understand it. President Obama can't understand it. And if he can, he hasn't been able to persuade people that he can. And he's had plenty of time to do that. So come on, you got to give the folks a break. The folks are listening. In the beginning, they were with Obama. They elected him on reforming health care. But now they've seen what he's got, and they're saying, Doctor, we don't want it. It's very clear.
Bill, I disagree with you. I don't think that folks know what are in the 9 different health care policies.
Yeah, they can't know because President Obama can't tell them. He's the leader. Well, he can't tell them.
We need a piece of legislation first. And what has to happen prior to producing legislation is democratic debate. And what's happening at these healthcare forums is folks are coming and shutting down democratic debate. So I don't think people know much about healthcare. If they did,
hysteria never furthers public policy, and I agree with you.
Indeed.
I think, though, you are totally misreading the leadership factor here. To pass any kind of a complicated legislation, you have to have a strong leader, okay? And Obama has not been that in this debate. Now, Scott.
I would agree with you on that.
Okay. He hasn't. He hasn't been strong.
I would agree with you on that, just like Bill Clinton. Well, you know, I think
I got to get to Scott, though, Doctor. I'll give you the last word. I got to get to Scott. I see this as possible Armageddon for the Obama administration. If this goes down in flames, or he tries to ram it through in the fall with so many people against the majority of Americans, 58% not wanting it. If President Obama tries to ram it through because he does have the Democratic majority in both houses, I don't think he can come back from that. I think this may be a defining moment less than a year into his 4-year term.
Well, it all depends on what the it is. I mean, right now, 51% of Americans say they fear the government more than they fear insurance companies, so anything that decisively shifts control into the government is going to have some problems. If any of the people who currently have health insurance with a private insurer and they're happy with it and they get forced out of that plan, it's going to be a disaster for the administration. On the other hand, if the president scales way back and passes something that he calls health care reform and enrages the left wing of his own party, that might have a different impact.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on what the final deal is, that's for sure. I got 30 seconds, Doctor. You can have the last word.
Well, I think this is very similar to what Bill Clinton faced in '93 and '94, where orchestrated, organized healthcare insurance lobbies convinced the American public that what was in their best interest was not in their best interest. I think that if we all sat down at a table across the ideological spectrum, we would agree that reform needs to take place. The form that it might take, of course, we would disagree. That's the most democratic thing we can do.
Again, I agree with that, but I will tell you this, Doctor. In America, the strongest argument usually wins. Doctor, Scott, thank you very much. Directly ahead, Laura